Hi, my name is Raluca Ursica. I am a counseling psychologist and positive psychotherapist. I am a master trainer for positive psychotherapy and live in London in United Kingdom, where I'm the director of the London Center for Positive Psychotherapy. So one of the things that I'm kind of interested in is organizing and structuring your private practice so that it works properly. Yeah. So yes, in London, there are, in the UK, there are rules and regulations about how to practice ethically and safely. So I'm trying my best to kind of follow these rules and regulations. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in one of the documents that we should have in our private practice, or at least think about as practitioners, is a document, a clinical will, if you want, that outlines what happens to our practice in case we are incapacitated. That means we are absent for a longer period of time or we die. Because we need to ensure continuity of care for our clients. Yes. And our practice is quite complicated. There are financial sides, there are memberships, there are scheduling issues, there are maybe researches that we are part of. So there's quite a lot of things that we might be involved in. So having a piece of a paper or a document that kind of explains what we want to happen to all these parts of our practice is very helpful. Yes. I mean, think about it. We are part now, many of us are part of working groups or part of kind of international researches, and we all have pieces of information on our computer that maybe we didn't share with our colleagues. So what happens to that information? How do our colleagues get access to that information, which is a product of the whole team? So also things like that need to be considered, or if you're translating a book, or if you're anything that involves your colleagues and then your clients. Yeah. I like the fact that I smile when I say this, although it's not a very comfortable subject, because I'm not that comfortable with the idea of dying. But anyway, so first of all, a clinical will. So this document should have the name of a clinical executor, which is exactly that, the person who will contact them, who takes responsibility for your practice, to close down your practice once you died or you are seriously ill. It needs to have information about the location of the key to your office. If you have a physical office, where do you keep the key so that people can go in and, collect your things, and password to your computer and to documents. Yeah. Access to your schedule. Yeah. When do you see clients? When do you see your supervisees? When do you see your trainees, etc.? Client risk assessment and contact information. Some of us work with high-risk clients, that care needs to be monitored, because you need to make sure that the client is still, safe, even if something has happened to you. So contact information for the clients is important. And then membership in all these associations that we're part of. Somebody needs to inform these associations that you're not a member of that association anymore. Insurance information, if you work with insurance companies. Ideally, this clinical executor should be from the same modality that you are in. So if we're positive psychotherapists, ideally the clinical executor should be a positive psychotherapist, or at least a psychodynamic therapist, because they will then understand the dynamic of the relationship you have with your client. It depends. If you want this clinical executor, if they have space in their practice to take over your clients, then of course they can take over your clients. And if the clients want to be seen by this person, if not, they can suggest other colleagues, or they can suggest websites where they can find other therapists. So in my case, it's easier because my supervisor is my my clinical executor. But if, for example, if it would be, let's say, another colleague who doesn't have access to information about the client, that needs to be discussed then, how much of the information that you have about the client, their history, their, presenting issue, their case conceptualization, how much of that do you want to share with your colleagues, and how helpful is it for them to know all these things about the client? I personally don't think it's important, because even if they take on this client as their own, they need to do their own research and therapeutic alliance. So I think what's important is the risk assessment. Are they high risk or not? If they're not high risk, then, the client can tell the new therapist to not choose friends as clinical executors, because they already deal with the, the loss of you. Yeah, it's a very difficult task to kind of do. I've worked with a client whose therapist, who was my colleague. We weren't very close, but we worked in the same service. My colleague succeeded in taking his own life, and I then got this client. It was one of the most difficult dynamics I've ever been in, because I had my own beliefs about, and worries and guilt and questions about how my colleague has done such a thing, and why didn't I see the signs, and could I have done more, and all these things going in my head. And then also sitting there with my clients' thoughts about, I've never thought about my therapist being so vulnerable, and if they didn't make it, what are the chances that I will make it, etc. So it's a very difficult kind of dynamic to hold when you sit with a client who has lost their therapist. I do it usually at the beginning of therapy, and it's part of the contracting phase. When I say everything that you tell me is confidential, unless you're going to hurt yourself, somebody else, you're planning terrorist attacks, or a judge asks a question, so I need to disclose this information. And I also say, in case something happens to me, a colleague of mine will receive your information and will inform you about my incapacitation. Yeah, and we'll discuss with you the next steps for your care. And it's part of the psychotherapeutic contract. So it's part of the the informed consent. It's not a form, it's not official, it's not I don't know, signed by a lawyer or a solicitor. It's just an agreement between two colleagues to help each other out if there's a need. And it's literally says, my name is, I'm this therapist, I'm registered with these bodies, and then my clinical executor is this person, their details are these, and in case of my death or incapacitation, my clinical executor will be informed by my husband, family members. They will inform them what's happening, and then they will know. When you start doing it, what you realize is that your private practice is so complex, and there are so many things that you're doing and holding.